You're setting up a big brother surveillance system, and people know it, sir. You think the American people want this surveillance tech being used against them? People are waking up to what you're doing there, sir. That's why we're here covering this. There is a lot of heavy kind of tech representation here, and military men who are preparing for something. I've been covering the Bilderberg conference for 19 years now. The first one I ever went to was in 2006 in Ottawa. These are some of the most powerful and influential people in the world. Mark Carney, our new prime minister, is also a Bilderberger. Bilderberg Group, an informal and off-the-record conference for political and business elites in a forum that would allow for candid and frank discussions without the fear of being quoted or recorded. Thus, the meetings are held in secret and are by invitation only. For almost 60 years, the Bilderberg Group has been meeting behind closed doors in luxury hotels around the world to discuss in secret their plan for global control of world events and markets. The members of the Bilderberg Group have such an influence over the media that until recent years, their name and existence has been quietly kept from the general public through a veritable media blackout. With the advent of new social media tools and advances in technology, the Bilderberg Group is now finding it almost impossible to stay out of the spotlight and hide their powerful cabal from the public.
Welcome to Liberty Talk. I'm Odessa Orlowitz. I already have Dan right here with us because we have 20 minutes because he is in Stockholm at Bilderberg. And I'm so excited that you made this time for me, Dan. We want to quickly show a clip of you confronting Peter Thiel, and then you will tell my audience who he is, why it matters, and at Bilderberg, they're actually talking about depopulation. So I am basically letting my audience know who you are and why they should go follow you while you're at Bilderberg, because it's really exciting that you're there. Let's just quickly show this clip. Mr. Thiel, do you have any comments about Palunteer's surveillance of the American people, sir? Or any of your connections to Jeffrey Epstein? I think people are rather concerned about that last particular one. You're setting up a big brother surveillance system, and people know it, sir. You think the American people want this surveillance tech being used against them? Any comments at all on the Epstein connections? You were meeting with them. People are waking up to what you're doing there, sir. That's why we're here covering this. Wow, Peter Thiel was booking it. That man picked up the pace. The second the word Epstein came out, it seemed he started getting a little faster. But stone cold Peter Thiel. Of course, co-founded Palunteer with Alex Karp, who is still here. And these are the guys who are setting up the big brother surveillance system, essentially to track, trace, and database everyone, not just Americans. You may have heard me say that, but literally everyone. And that's a big reason of part of the reason why he is here. There is a lot of heavy kind of tech representation here, and military men who are preparing for something. There's your first clip. Thank you so much for being over there. Tell us where everyone can follow you, because you're putting out lots of stories about this. Besides Facebook, Dan Dix, where can people find you?
Well, the best place to go is probably pressfortruth.ca. There you can pretty much find everything. I've recently been returned to YouTube, believe it or not. So I got my channel back on YouTube, but I'm also posting a lot of my Bilderberg coverage on X. It's Dan Dix PFT. over there on X, formerly Twitter. So I've been putting a lot of stuff up there, but basically pressfortruth.ca is probably the best place to go.
Well, you are a well-known documentary filmmaker and show host. So what is sort of why you wanted to go over there? There's depopulation on the agenda. And who is Palunteer? Why should we care?
Well, I've been covering the Bilderberg conference for 19 years now. The first one I ever went to was in 2006 in Ottawa, and I was hooked from the very first moment. It's in fact the Bilderberg conference, my coverage of it, that like a month later, I got home and decided this is what I want to do with my life, and I launched Press for Truth in July of 2006, 1 month after my coverage of my first Bilderberg. And I've been coming to pretty much every one that I've been able to ever since. I've covered them consecutively since 2012, up until, of course, the point where I was not allowed to fly out of my own country, being a prisoner during the years of 2020 to 2022 or so. We all know why. But I think it's of the utmost importance to cover this particular event, because what we're talking about here, what we're dealing with, is around 120 people on average. And these are some of the most powerful and influential people in the world. We're talking about the heads of finance, heads of military, the politicians and royalty and media moguls, and a lot of people who can really pull the strings on world shaping events. So often when you come, you get an idea of some of the things you can expect to see in the near future just by simply paying attention to who they are inviting and some of the things that they are talking about. And you mentioned Peter Thiel. We already showed that clip. The reason why I nailed him there in a confrontation was because he's here and he's secretly meeting with some of the global elite, and he is the guy who co-founded Palunteer with Alex Karp. This is like a defense contract where they engage with the military on all sorts of things. But recently, the Trump administration has expanded Palantir's capabilities to essentially point the cameras on the American people and to pretty much surveil them, all through and through. It's like essentially setting up the Big Brother surveillance control grid is what they're working on. So I decided to confront him about that. And as you saw from the clip, I also brought up the fact that this guy's met with Jeffrey Epstein. Like this, came out not too long ago. He's may have accepted some funds from, Jeffrey Epstein. I wish I thought of asking him that at the time, but it's kind of tricky sometimes when all of a sudden, boom, he's there, and I got to try to think of what to say on the spot. But yeah, I ended up hitting him up on the Palunteer surveillance control grid and the ties to Jeffrey Epstein. But this is why I'm here, because sometimes you see some people who are actually not on the participants list, so you can't really trust the official list. But the list has come out, and I will document any discrepancies that we do find in the list. And as you mentioned, there is a pretty interesting topic on the agenda. Literally, depopulation and migration is one of the topics. Like, that's pretty big. So obviously migration, they're using this right now to divide the West in a lot of ways. But in terms of depopulation, you got to wonder, are they talking about this in terms of this is something we need to work on decreasing, or is this something we need to work on increasing? I think they're going for global depopulation, and there's really only two ways that you can do that. If you want to depopulate the Earth, you either got to increase the global death rate, or you have to decrease the global birth rate. Or I suppose you could do a combination of the two. But we're essentially already seeing that right now with the poisoning of our food and water and air and the amount of chemicals we're constantly bombarded with, which is essentially kind of already adding to that cause of decreasing the birth rate and increasing the death rate. But that should tell you a lot, when some of the world's most powerful and influential people are meeting behind closed doors under strict secrecy, completely locked down by security, to talk about things like depopulating the Earth. It's actually absolutely mind-boggling, and the media doesn't report on it, and that's why I'm here.
So, am I correct that they're not allowed to bring their phones in and all that stuff, and they're not allowed that into the meetings?
Yeah, nothing is allowed to be recorded. They sweep the place for bugs, before the meeting takes place, and they're under something very strict rules that's referred to as Chatham House rules. And what that means is they can they can talk a little bit about some of the things that may have been discussed at the meeting, but they're not allowed to say who said what. They can't attribute any quotes to any particular people. So anytime I've tried to get information out of these guys, it's been a lot of running around because they stick to the Chatham House rules, which just shows you just how unbelievably secret this meeting is. And you got to think if there was, let's say, 120 like movie stars and actors, musicians and athletes who are meeting in this building right there behind me, the whole world would want to be knowing what are they doing, what are they talking about in there. But here you have again military men, royalty, prime ministers and presidents, heads of finance, literally discussing the fate of the world, the type of stuff that's going to affect you and me in the very near future. And basically, the media has been instructed to not only not cover it, but there's about 24 or so, I think, that I counted on this year's list of media who are inside the building, and they're never going to report on it. People from Atlantic, people from The Economist, people from Bloomberg, the New York Times. There's a bunch of them who are in there, but you're never going to hear anything about Bilderberg from them.
Who's there from Canada?
So this year it's interesting. There's only there's three people. There's this one guy named Murray something. I don't know his last name. I'm not super familiar with this guy, but he's apparently the head of British Petroleum, which is interesting to have a Canadian as the head of British Petroleum. But there's also Philippe Champagne, the Minister of Finance here in Canada, who actually was recently asked in Parliament about his attendance and if he's going to come to Bilderberg. And he just kind of laughed it off and said, "Why are you so interested in where I'm going? Are you in love with me or something?" Basically, he was just like making a joke of it all. And then you've got Chrystia Freeland as well, who has, she's here again. I documented her last year in Spain, the year before in Portugal. And of course, she is now the Minister of International Trade and of Transportation. Seems like she's potentially been demoted a little bit from her previous position of Deputy Prime Minister. But, that could be because of the fact that Mark Carney, our new Prime Minister, is also a Bilderberger. So, yeah, you've got three notable ones here. And I find it interesting that the Bilderberg Group seems to be so interested in Canadian finance ministers in particular. You got this Francois Philippe Champagne, or whatever his name is, who's the Minister of Finance. You've got Chrystia Freeland, who was the Minister of Finance when she was coming at a time. And also Bill Marneau has also attended the Bilderberg conference while he was the Minister of Finance. So for whatever reason, they often seem to want to invite Canadian ministers of finance. So, but right now they have one of those. They have the other guy from BP, British Petroleum, and also Chrystia Freeland. And, last time she was the deputy prime minister, I remember trying to look up her itinerary, and it did not say where she was on these particular days. So I wonder if any Canadians are going to be aware right now that their Minister of Trade and International Transport and International Trade and all that is secretly meeting with some of the world's global elite right here in Stockholm. In case people didn't know, she actually wrote a book. She wrote a book. I can't remember what it's called right now, but it really touched on the secret society. She mentions Davos. She mentions Bilderberg in this book, and this is from like over a decade ago. In the context that these are international conferences that she was essentially almost kind of warning about at the time, but now she's completely flipped the script and now she's literally a member. And so we've managed to document footage of her arriving. She just got in today, actually. So it's official now. Yeah, she's here, and we have proof.
Yeah, and the fact that nobody has their phones and no one's allowed to report on what's going on there, we'll never know what they say about depopulation. And in fact, another article from scientists, real scientists and doctors, has come out saying, uh-oh, whoops, this thing may have screwed up some women's ovaries.
Mm.
Whoops. Ooh, so I mean, it's all going to be covered up anyways, but I'm so glad you're there to confront people. Is there anything else on your agenda that you're really hoping to do before you leave?
Yeah, I mean, tomorrow's going to be a big day. There is a huge protest, actually, that's being organized here in Stockholm against the Bilderberg Group specifically. They're going to be starting like in downtown, and they're going to march all the way to the Grand Hotel. So that should be very interesting. We'll see what goes on with that. And then, of course, Sunday, when all the Bilderbergers leave, is typically a great time to get some face to face conversations, and sometimes especially at the airport. I'm often get a lot of good conversations with them at the airport when they leave. So that's going to be happening on Sunday. So I look forward to that, and people can look forward to that too. But I'll give you one little interesting tidbit of information here that I just discovered like an hour ago, and I'm starting to kind of put the pieces together. Peter Thiel, it looks to me like he just left, like he just booked it out of here. And
Okay.
the reason why I think so is because he left with his luggage. And you got to consider what's happening right now with Iran and Israel,
Yes.
and the
Yes.
fact that, he's, running Palantir, and probably had to, take off to his buddies in Tel Aviv or something, because it's very bizarre that he would leave so early. But when you consider,
What's
what's happening right now in the world, it's like he's got some bigger things to deal with right now. So I found that a little bit shocking and interesting. Like he came when I confronted him yesterday, and he's already gone this morning. On the
happening?
first day of the meeting, essentially. This is the first day, and he's already gone. So very,
Yeah.
very strange for him to show up and leave again. But when you consider what's happening right now in the world, I guess it kind of makes sense.
Have you covered Palunteer extensively so people can go follow you on that?
I haven't actually. I would like to do like a standalone video on Palantir, but I haven't done that yet. I've just been keeping up with some of the newer stuff the Trump administration has been doing in terms of turning Palantir on the American people. So yeah, I'd love to do a deep dive on that very soon. But running into Peter Thiel, I couldn't let up the opportunity to confront this guy about the fact of, they're setting up a big brother surveillance Orwellian control grid. And I don't know if you could tell, but he looked angry.
Angry.
He did.
Yeah.
He looked
Yeah.
he looked angry and agitated, and he was walking like militantly and so fast.
I
And
know.
really, really disliked those particular questions. But you're not going to get in these kind of questions with these types of guys without coming to something like this. And I could tell you a funny little story about how I got that confrontation.
Okay.
I haven't told anybody this, so this is a first for you guys. But this is cool. I was just at the right place at the right time. Let me tell you, I was just standing there, and this guy approaches these cops behind me, and I just hear him say, "Excuse me, my client is about to walk in, and he doesn't have his lanyard with him. Is that going to be a problem?" And the cops are like, "Who's your client?" And they pull out a list, and I just hear him say, Peter Thiel. And I'm just sitting there like listening to this guy going, is this really happening? And then the cop's like, "Yeah, that shouldn't be a problem." And so this is Thiel's bodyguards. So they then walk all the way up the side of the building. So I decided to follow them. I followed them all the way up. And sure enough, out of a car way up there pops out Peter Thiel. And it's just me, Peter Thiel, and it's two bodyguards. And they had to, we had the whole walkway all the way back down to the entrance where I was able to confront them with those questions. So it was like a
Meant to
case of
be.
just really being at the right place at the right time.
Yeah.
It just kind of worked out too perfectly for me. And I was very, very happy to get that confrontation.
God had your back. Now, guys, Dan Dix has gone all the way over there paying for this by himself. He didn't ask me to do this, but it's your birthday and you have fronted a ton of money to go there to cover this for us for free. If you would like to donate a coffee or anything more, it would be great if you could donate to Dan Dick's trip there because you're doing this for us and I appreciate it. Where can people donate to you?
Well, in any of my most recent videos at pressfortruth.ca, you'll find a link to my Go Get Funding campaign. I launch one of those pretty much every year. These trips usually cost me around 3 or 4 grand or so for the flights and the accommodations and the travel and the food and all that. So I usually try to raise around that much. So that's kind of what I'm trying to raise now. And I usually, don't. I walk away at a loss, or sometimes I break even. But you know, yeah, if anybody wants to chip into that, it would be very greatly appreciated. If you do not want to use Go Get Funding, you could also just go to pressfortruth.ca/donate, and there's all sorts of different options. But I'm here either way, and I'm going to continue to bang out the videos as best as I can. But certainly anybody who wants to chip in is going to be greatly appreciated. My birthday's tomorrow, which there's so much going on. There's like global uprisings being set by people all over, like Antifa and God knows who else. There's Donald Trump is trying to organize some sort of massive military parade. We've got this huge Bilderberg protest that's going to be happening right here in front of the hotel. And yeah, it all happens to fall on my birthday. So honestly, I couldn't wish for a better way to celebrate my birthday than to be here exposing corruption on the front lines. So thank you so much for letting everybody know about that. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, and if you're watching on Facebook or Rumble or Liberty, it will be in the description how you can donate to Dan's trip over there. It's his birthday. I will donate to you right after this show. I'm so appreciative that you made time for little old me. And I really look forward to all your stories about Bilderberg and everything else. I'm sure a lot of you know who Dan Dix is. Of course you do. But if not, go follow him on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Press for Truth, Dan Dix. Thank you so, so much.
No problem. I'll let you guys know, I actually did make a documentary film about the Bilderberg Group, specifically the Canadian connection to the Bilderberg Group. There's a huge section in my film that focuses directly on the Canadian connection to Bilderberg. It's called The Turning Point. It's only a 45-minute, 50-minute film. It's one of my shorter films. But it is available on my YouTube channel. You guys can go watch that for free. If you want to learn more about the Bilderberg Group and specifically the Canadian connection to it, I would suggest you check out The Turning Point. In the spring of 1954, Joseph Redinger, a Polish political advisor and founder of the European movement that would lead to the founding of the European Union, started the Bilderberg Group, an informal and off-the-record conference for political and business elites from European and Western nations. With the help of Prince Bernhard of the Netherlands, along with other powerful politicians and businessmen, they organized the first annual Bilderberg meeting at the Hotel de Bilderberg in Oosterbeek, Netherlands. The Prince, a former executive for IG Farben and a former Nazi SS party member before the war, was also an influential executive in the oil industry, working for Royal Dutch Petroleum. As a member of the Dutch royal family and the father of the current matriarch and fellow Bilderberger Queen Beatrix, Bernhard was a very powerful and influential member of the European community. The original stated goals of the Bilderberg Group were to bring together the leaders of business, finance, and politicians from Europe and Western nations in a forum that would allow for candid and frank discussions of international issues, without the fear of being quoted or recorded. Thus, the meetings are held in secret and are by invitation only. For almost 60 years, the Bilderberg Group has been meeting behind closed doors in luxury hotels around the world to discuss in secret their plan for global control of world events and markets. Some notable members have included the Rothschild banking family, Queen Beatrix of the Netherlands, Prince Philippe and Prince Charles of the British royal family, international financier David Rockefeller, and former Secretary of State Henry Kissinger. The members of the Bilderberg Group have such an influence over the media that until recent years, their name and existence has been quietly kept from the general public through a veritable media blackout. With the advent of new social media tools and advances in technology, the independent media has been exposing these annual meetings on an increasing scale. We have reached the turning point. The Bilderberg Group is now finding it almost impossible to stay out of the spotlight and hide their powerful cabal from the public.
I will put that in the description as well, for sure.
Cool. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. I look forward to seeing you soon.
Absolutely.
Bye.
Thanks for having me, Odessa. You keep up the great work. Talk to you
Oh,
later.
thank you, Dan. Okay, bye. I'm so lucky that I was able to get Dan for the 20 minutes. He's so busy over there. I'm so grateful. Do check out Bilderberg. Do check out what they have, listed as the topics they're covering, and make sure to follow Dan for updates. He's so great at what he does, and I'm sure he'll be talking more about Palunteer in the future. Norb and I always say there's two things that are going to happen. Either the Democrats will bring in like digital ID where we're tracked and traced, or the Republicans will eventually bring in digital ID where we're tracked and traced. I don't see us getting out of digital ID and tracking and tracing either way. The Democrats have their excuses, and then the Republicans will say, well, we have to do digital ID because there's so many people coming in illegally. We have criminals. So in my book, it all ends in more tracking and tracing, unfortunately. So opt out of it as long as you can. Put up a fight, say no. That's the only thing we can do, is continue to say no to the tracing and tracking and forced digitalization. I think if there hadn't been pushback, we already wouldn't be using cash anymore, but they know there's a huge pushback. So continue to push back no matter who is in power. It is complicated with immigration, how they've flooded illegals into America. And they're trying to find everybody, but that doesn't mean that they can get away with, overstepping. But it seems like right now, as long as you have a cell phone, they can find you anyways. So I don't know what's going to happen, but it's such an interesting topic. Appreciate you guys tuning in. Quick message from my sponsor, and I'll see you guys next time. Did you know if the banks do a bail-in, they can take the contents in your bank vault? But storing your gold and silver at home could be a huge security risk. Every day, our dollar is worth less and less. Inflation is stealing the only savings families have. Now more than ever, it's so important to hedge the savings you've worked so hard for. Banks have been failing all over the world, and social credit has all but arrived. But did you know you can do wholesale price vaulting and retail delivery from the most prestigious, reliable company in Canada? Did you also know if you decide to leave Canada, your gold and silver can be sent right to you after you arrive to your destination? The only company I personally use and trust are those awake guys at New World Precious Metals. Take control of your family's future. You can just click the link in my show description or type in the web address libertytalkcanada.ca/gold to get on their mailing list, attend their webinar, or book an appointment. Let them know Odessa sent you.
Restore Effects is the leader in professional paintless clear coat repair. Perfected over 2 decades, our product system surpasses traditional clear coat fixes to pave the future of vehicle reconditioning. Restore Effects permanently removes 99% of damage to your clear coat by replicating and restoring the original paint finish. Reset your vehicle's appearance or put your business fleet's best foot forward, all without repainting. Visit restoreeffects.com and find a center near you.